Is YouTube live? Have
Welcome
last
to
week
live
the
chat. Live chat's on. Is
oh,
this pushing
we
to
see live
YouTube?
chat. I see live chat.
It says waiting for SCI Fridays.
Hmm. Hmm. If you are
Yes,
watching us live,
we,
this is
we,
what it
we are
looks like
live.
when
We are live.
we
Okay, let me
figure
switch
things
that
out,
off.
and stuff isn't just plug and play. Like you actually have to play a little bit to make the plug work, right?
I'm excited that you can check LinkedIn. I've just confirmed that we are dialed into YouTube. That's done. So one step closer to taking over the podcast world by making sure that we are live. We should be live on LinkedIn Live,
I'm
although we
confirming
can't
that for you.
schedule an
We are
event yet.
live. We are live.
Okay,
It's beautiful.
multi-stream people, multi-stream. That's what we are about. Coming soon to a podcast app of your choice. And I
That's right.
may have show notes. Far less prepared this week than last week, and last week we were less prepared. It is confusing. Do we need
Well,
to
it's
do
a
the
labor
thing?
of love. It's a labor of love, and with the love, I'm going to ask you to please roll the jingle.
I don't know if I remembered how this works. Here we go. Welcome to SCI Fridays, where firewalls are feelings, VPNs are vibes, and inside the network is just a comforting lie we tell ourselves, Nick.
Comforting line that we tell ourselves. It's very true, because what is the inside of the network? So I remember that sense of comfort when it still meant something else. So inside the network, like we spoke about last week, is kind of everywhere now.
The network is everywhere. This is the show where we take a blunt, slightly cynical look at security, compliance, and identity in the real world, where tools are expensive. And I want to talk about your tools, Nick. I want to talk about your tools. I saw your tools today. Configs are messy, and attackers mostly just log in rather than break in. Each week, we unpack the gap between pretty architecture diagrams and what actually happens in production, modern attack paths, zero trust, cloud and hybrid madness, identity gone wrong, and the compliance controls that pass audits while your tenant quietly burns in the background. New episodes drop every Friday on your favorite podcast app and video platform. Now live on YouTube. So subscribe, follow, send this to the one person on your team who still thinks we're safe. We got this. We've got a firewall.
Is there a
Welcome,
moment
Nick.
for
Happy Friday.
inappropriate humor? Happy Friday indeed. And I remember that between us, we've created some really funny phrases like "What's graft got to do with it?" However, I think there's a moment here where we can actually talk about a true classic, which we grew up listening to, which was around the giving Australia back to the original people, the Aborigines. And the song that made that really famous was "Beds Are Burning." Now consider that with everything that you just said, that our tenants are burning. And how do we sleep while our tenants are burning?
In the midnight oil, right? In the midnight oil. Yes, that was how can we sleep while our beds are. Yeah, firewalls are
That's
burning.
right.
Well, are they? Are they?
Well, our
Are they?
firewalls aren't, because it's not doing a lot anymore. And we kind of are flogging this horse to death. And I think today we're going to talk a little bit more than just, well, the perimeter is the identity. I think we're well beyond that now, aren't we, Al?
We are beyond that. And thanks to everyone who tuned in today. Hopefully, we'll have more than zero point 0.5 people live streaming once they get used to the cadence. So today, yes, we're going back to normal run of show. For those that are new, we have the intro, which you just experienced. We're going to talk a little bit. We've got another segment called In the News. And then we'll go into the topic of today, which will usually take about 25 minutes to distill. And then Nick will give us his top Entra ID tip of the week. And that's how we'll end. That shouldn't be new to you, Nick. Does that mean you're going to start thinking about a top tip? Right?
Well, I'm going to start my top tip with, I've done a thing.
I've done it. Oh. Ooh, and I wonder what that is. So, in the news, I actually need an audio segment for that, in the news.
In the news.
What's in your news, Nick? Because I know what's in my news.
Talking about burning beds, Al, with laptops that could be burning because, tokens are expensive. And today in the news, or this week in the news, it's all been around Spark, what could happen in the Microsoft world. And Microsoft is encouraging us to buy Microsoft Surfaces with really teeny tiny NVIDIA chips that can produce a teraflop of local processing power that gives us at least the illusion of AI everywhere and tokens we don't have to pay for anymore, Al.
Did Spark spark your interest? I feel very Tom Buck saying that, right?
It's
Yes,
hard
people.
not to. The promise of local AI, Al.
Well, we've been tussling. So for those who don't know Nick and I that well, Nick and I have this interesting conversational piece currently that's grabbed our attention called AI. And we've been chatting about AI for the last 2-3 weeks, specifically harnesses and local AI. So yes, it has been Microsoft Build this week. Big, massive announcements. The age of the agentic OS is upon us. It's called Windows. And in order to solve the data center power wattage problem, I think Microsoft and NVIDIA got together and they birthed the RTX Spark, not to be confused with the DGX Spark, which was NVIDIA's first foray into token crunching with their CUDA architecture. You can go buy a DGX Spark today. I think it was the something 10. NVIDIA reference architecture. It's an ARM processor with unified memory and 128 gigs of soldered VRAM, 96 gigs of that dedicated to GPU token crunching. And you can go buy that. In South Africa, they're about 90,000 Rand for that. It's gold, so it looks like a Bitcoin miner, right? And that's been around for quite some time. My flavor of choice, even though it's not CUDA architecture, is the Ryzen AI Max 395. So AMD's foray into the space, But because NVIDIA's got the CUDA architecture and tokenization runs based on CUDA, actually Jensen from NVIDIA announced it 3 days before Build that they're moving into the laptop space. And then immediately Microsoft dropped the Surface Laptop Ultra, which is, I think, a 15-inch version of the RTX Spark. Same architecture, but in mobile format. And now, on the back of that announcement, Microsoft announced a whole bunch of updates coming to Windows 11 that's got to do with, and stick with us here, right? There is method in our madness, and the reason why we're talking about this, and we'll come full circle. But Build's got OpenClaw in Windows, a dev drive in Windows, segmentation using native container services in Windows, Git metadata in File Explorer, Scout, which is this new thing, right? And all you have to do is spend about $6,000, between $4,000 and $6,000 on an RTX Spark notebook from your favorite vendor, not just Microsoft, Dell, HP, MSI, ASUS. They all released versions of the RTX Spark. And did I miss something? Oh, you can also buy a dev box, which is like a DGX Spark. I think it's a DGX Spark. Microsoft also announced that from the Surface team. Uh, your friend here is the 100. And did you put your hand up?
I did. I'm waiting politely for my opportunity to speak.
Oh, we have putting hands up in live streams. That's very interesting.
That's
This is
right.
not a Teams call. Um, wow, that kind of, I did not know that we could do that. Yeah. Your hands up, Nick. What were you going to say? Oh, and there's love and emojis. And oh, there's a react thing. Oh, look
That's
at that.
right. And speaking of reactions, Al, originally Microsoft took the stance, and why do we care? Why do we even talk about this? Well, the show is called Security, Compliance, and Identity, and it's on a Friday. So we close the whole loop with the time and date thing. However, security, compliance, identity, and the fact that we have claw built into Windows, no longer open claw, but that we have discrete claws. Now, if we remember correctly, a little while ago, Microsoft came out with a position of open claw is and now claw is baked into Microsoft. And of course, the press had a little bit of a field day with 5 0-day vulnerabilities found in claw during the week of build. One a
No!
day. That's right. So consider that it's not just all about the news, it's not just all about the hype, but there's some balance here. So we're not just automatically running out and spending $6,000 on GPUs to run things locally. We also need to consider, and that's kind of the point of today's show, what does it mean when you take that identity that you've got from the agent that's out there, it's in the cloud, it feels good, it's in the cloud, but you are now moving it to local. Al, it runs locally on your machine. You feel better, right? It's kind of like you can run into the data center, you can unplug the agent, right? That's full circle to something that you've been talking about for the last few years. We no longer run into the data center to unplug the firewall when there's a breach, but we do close the lid on the laptop. And we say, well, my agent is no longer executing that bad thing it was. So, who are you really?
Well, that's the news from us and going straight into this episode. And I'm in a new office and my desktop's not working well. And if I full screen that, it goes to the size of, it's just weird. But we are talking about, can I make this better, Nick? Hold on. Let's just see if I can make this better. Stop sharing layout. Can I make it better? Better. Let's just leave it at that. Right. So in episode 2, we would like to continue our conversation from last week. And as we said, the firewalls are burning. Today, we really want to talk about identity as the new firewall. This is so bizarre, Nick. This is like deja vu, like we've done this before, right?
Yes, it's a little bit of the more things change, the more things stay
Yeah.
the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a little bit of a thing. So, I I think we've seen this movie, and I don't think that we're not going to see this movie for a while still, El. It's like the more things change, the more they stay the same, and we are solving the same kind of problems. The problem seems to be the same, just what it applies to changes a little bit.
And, you know, in which window are you, Nick? Oh, I actually need to set my desktop up. So we really want to talk around how the attack vectors actually moved over the last, I don't know if we can say that anymore, over the last. When people started moving to the cloud and allowed everyone to connect from anywhere and not through some VPN of sadness, right? Because that's the promise of cloud, right? You can move to the cloud and you can connect from anywhere, any point in time, everywhere, all at once, right? What they didn't factor in is that people are connecting from anywhere, all at once, from any device. So the concept of having a firewall kind of just disappeared, right? Because people are no longer going into a physical building. We're working from anywhere, we're working from home, and we no longer have this thing in the middle that's going to worry about how we communicate with compliant data in the cloud, right? Because that's been the
That's right.
problem, right?
Yeah.
And we've always said that Nobody is hacking a firewall anymore. You know, in the preventative maintenance series with Ina, we talked about identity security, application security, and all of the securities, right? But the concept has always been about how do we protect our network? And then ZTNA came in and all of those things, but I don't think that's ever landed well, right? So when we talk about going from firewall to identity, which is the paradigm shift, right? It was easy to say we have a firewall, and what do? We open up ports and we allow traffic. Or we don't allow traffic, or we allow unidirectional traffic. It's either inbound or it's outbound or it's both, and it runs on a specific port and nobody else can get out. And that's how we manage connectivity to the interwebs. We no longer have that safety blanket of being able to do that.
That's right. It gets a little bit worse, in fact, Al, because people like you and I, we play with agentic harnesses, be it an OpenClaw, a Hermes, a Claude, anything that can actually point to something else, right? All of those can consume local models, which is a lot of fun. But then it's not fun if it's only an island. And so what does all of this mean in the context of identity? Well, we talked about firewalls, but what if there truly is no firewall? Because one of the things we do is we connect all our stuff together for convenience, right? Because convenience wins the day. So all of us run SD-WANs like Tailscale that gives us some kind of glue it all together, flattens the network. So Al's Hermes instance can talk to his NAS anywhere in the world. And he gets the benefit of being able to query his Hermes on his mobile device anywhere in the world. So we just flattened that network again, right? So where on earth is the firewall? What happened to trust? And inside of that, you have this agent that's running in the context of an identity with the permissions that it has, again, on a flattened network. So when we want to unplug the firewall, Al, what do we actually unplug? We've just stretched out our horizons even more.
Well, I think that's where the shift is, right? When customers, primarily because of COVID, that was the mass exodus. That's where firewalls went to live the rest of its lives, right? I'd love to have a stat on how many firewalls were hurt in that experience, right? When everyone went to the cloud, the firewalls didn't go along. Well, possibly. But everyone's sitting at home and connecting from there. So we don't sniff packets anymore because we literally don't sniff it anymore because there's no firewall to do things.
We do. It's
well,
back.
Kind of, yes.
It's back. So, no, it's even worse, Al. So, like you said, we had firewalls and firewall support groups where they said, show me on the picture of the firewall what the bad cloud did to you, right? So we had firewall support groups and firewall therapy, and then we said, oh, I remember the days when I was relevant, but we're back. And it gets worse because do you remember when we went to the cloud and you and I would say things like, friends don't let friends install proxy servers? Well, proxy servers are back. And what they are doing is, because we are so desperate for control, we're actually installing these inline proxies, and a few vendors have them. And since none of you all are sponsoring the podcast, we're not going to mention your names, but there's a hint in that. So if you consider that those proxy servers do break and inspect on outbound chat traffic and go, well, is this valid? Should I be querying Notebook LM for or with HR data? And then it gets even one step worse because all of that is encrypted. They do a TLS, break and inspect, which is a cardinal sin if you go to cloud, because that pattern doesn't scale. It's wonderful for control because you are like your mama who used to stand at the front door who decided which one of your friends gets in and plays with you, but it doesn't scale. And the point of doing anything in cloud is that we want maximum scalability. So where is that inspecting proxy when you need to go home and do the work that you're being paid to do with the agents that you were given to do the work? But now we've hairpinned all that traffic back to our local data centers. So Al, it's back, and we've reintroduced all those same problems to try and control what our users are doing.
Again, coming back to there were three things you said, not to be confused with tail scale, which doesn't scale, it just helps you scale. Yeah.
That's right.
It literally does. So a couple of things. Number one, we're saying that from a packet inspection perspective, there's a revitalization of what all of that looks like. Think of CASB and some sort of platform like Netscope or Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. That's the new firewall, right?
That's right.
But today's show is not really about the firewall. It's about what we should be looking at, and that's identities. Because we're saying the proliferation or the destruction or the decommissioning of a traditional firewall is real world. So how do we actually start worrying about other things? Although the other things didn't always matter, we just never looked as hard as we're now doing, right? Because identity is the common policy plane, right? Not firewalls or ports. Do we still care about ports? I don't know. Yes, Windows Firewall will do things, but think about it this way, right? A Teams call. Yeah? So the anatomy of a Teams call, for those who don't know and you think it just works and it's unicorns like planes flying, it's the same thing. You jump on a Teams call and 7 of your other colleagues jump on a Teams call from their house. One person in the office. The initial handshake is to your tenant. As soon as it broadcasts, it's peer-to-peer across an open port on your machine. That's a Teams call. Firewall doesn't matter, right? They would have a block of ports that it can want to communicate on, which is fine. But where Teams calling fails in a VDI perspective is that your local network card hitting the VDI is locked down from an access control perspective. Your NIC ACL, right? And then nothing works because they want those open ports. Right. So from a traffic inspection perspective, I don't think it's a false positive. Instead, we should be worrying about how do we verify that the identity wanting to connect is right. Instead of trying to sniff packets, and we can sniff packets later. But, your first barrier should be that wall that you put up is not a firewall, it's an identity wall, right? And why should we care?
Gosh, well, it's not just about authentication, is it? So identity is part of it and proof of identity, but then we also have things like the context of that identity in the context of what it's doing at the time that it's doing it and in the app that it's doing. So I'd like to argue that we are no longer having to argue about identity in absentia being the next firewall. It's identity and context. So context first, actually, is the next firewall.
Well, yes, and like the title says, and you can actually see it, who are we? Who are you, right? Who are we? Who are you? Moving away from firewalls, security experts should start thinking about verifying who the identity is, right? I suppose that's really what we want to talk about, and remember we started a conversation about 3 years ago to talk about MFA, and everyone went, well, Microsoft even said that I got 99 problems and MFA ain't one of them, and you can solve 99% of your security issues by enabling MFA. And that was a great sort of statement to make. MFA. It's attached to my phone somehow. But no, it was attached to a number, attached to a SIM card, attached to a phone, right? And then we moved past that and we said, well, phishing resistant MFA. Yeah? Phishing resistant MFA. And
resistant
what
is not
that
proof.
means, it's like IP67 rating for your phone. It's not waterproof, it's water resistant.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
So here's a simple one, right? It's a new phone. Well, not a new phone. This is a Xiaomi 15 Ultra. I bought a Xiaomi 17 Pro from China with a global ROM, and then I didn't like it. And then I used the Xiaomi Mover app that allows you to move content from this phone to another phone. Do you know what I didn't have to do on it after I moved content?
Go on.
I did not need to set this up on any of the tenants that I have access to as a factor of MFA authentication. I didn't have to do that. I was fascinated fascinated because you know, if you're on an iPhone, you could do a backup and you have to restore inside of Authenticator, right? Android, not so much, but on iPhone, I know you can do it. It's a restore, right? So it's a mechanism inside of Microsoft Authenticator. No.
Gosh.
Didn't have to do that.
That means
and I can
if
off.
I get
can
your phone,
off.
I could clone you. I can clone you.
If you clone a phone, right? So, you know, MFA, we're talking about MFA, phishing resistant, and that's going to solve your problems. But MFA bypass, well, half and half, not just necessarily. We'll come back to the bypass part when we talk about non-human identities. But I bypassed MFA by cloning my phone. So
I'd like to throw something at you, Al. So what do we do with MFA? What we do with MFA is we increase resistance towards whom? A human attacker. And we safeguard what? A human identity. But now, what if there is no such thing as increasing the amount of friction enough so that an agentic attacker is willing to go away? Because they're not. If I go and do a / task and I give it a budget and say that budget is 100,000 turns, I'm going to run out of electricity first before my agent runs out of resolve to try and solve the problem. And what we have with agentic anything is that there's a level of creativity to solve the problem. We've seen this in some of our internal chats where the agent comes back and said, well, you asked me to do transcription, so I figured out which whisper was cheaper and could run locally, so I implemented that for you. And you've got that kind of logic attacking our infrastructure, and what we're doing is we're treating it with human level resistance items like MFA, and then we're still having the argument about is SMS based MFA good enough in an era where an agentic attack could figure it out, quote unquote, and work its way around any type of resistance that we can create. So in that context, Al, we are securing identities for humans. Is that enough?
Well, it's a definition of the word secure, right? We initially said phishing resistant, and nobody lied. Nobody's been lying to us. They use the right words. We just believe something differently, right? So phishing resistant, are we of the opinion that we no longer want to rely on resistant as an active term to define a security principle? I think that's pretty much where we are, right? Because we said MFA is going to solve a problem. And then we said phishing resistant MFA is going to solve a problem. And right now we're saying
friction,
that...
Right? We added friction, but we weren't safe.
We're still not safe, right? So when you look at, stuff like, adversary in the middle, attacks, token theft, all of those things, nothing to do. It's one vector to bypass MFA, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's still an identity, human or non-human, and we'll get to non-human in a bit. There's still a human identity attached to MFA, right? And you mentioned it in last week's chat about a push notification or MFA fatigue, right? And you just described it now as well, where if I've got AI running and I just continually poll, and this person just is getting notifications on their phone, hitting the button to say, hey, it's okay. I'm just going to approve this, approve this, right? But what can we realistically do, right, from an identity perspective to ensure that it's not just about approving the authentication?
Are we talking about human identities first?
Human first, right?
So I'm going to ask you, Al, because this is a hard problem. How do I know that you are the human that you are claiming to be?
Apparently, banks want you to take a selfie.
And do you know, within Entra, we have the concept of verified identity. So one of the very cool things you
Oh,
can do, one of the very cool things that you could do is if you are an administrator and you've locked yourself out, there's a third-party service that you can subscribe to. It's a few dollars a turn that allows you to do the bank verified KYC process, use your selfie to unlock your administrator account and get back in. Ideally, you would have bought that service before you locked out, right? So you've figured all of that out, and you are, because we are responsible adults, we are preparing for breach. We've got that as one of our breach scenarios, that I, as the admin, are locked out of my own tenant. This is one of the things that we're doing from a human point of view. And because this is burning in my brain a little bit, I want to segue into the agentic version of that, if I may, Al.
yes, please do. I'll come back.
So one of the things that we like to talk about in human terms is proof over policy, right? So we review the access after the fact, and hopefully we do it before the fact. We have things that we talk about attestation, right? And attestation is mentioned or thought about in terms of days, weeks, months. But when your agent is knocking at your door, you don't have a month, right? It's milliseconds. And where we are kind of headed as an industry, and this is something that I learned this week, so it's a little bit of an extension of in the news, is bodies like the CSA, the Cloud Security Alliance, are arguing, well, agents should be able to verify who they are, what they are doing, and what the context is before they have access while they're accessing it, which is very much Zero Trust 101, right? Who are you? What are you doing? It's conditional access for agents, but on steroids, because we could ask the agent, or the agent has to rock up with the cryptographic proof of, this is who I am, this is what I'm allowed to do, this is who said that I can do all of these things, and it happens at machine speed. So in the future, where you've got an agent, like an agent that's representing your interests, Al, or your company's interests, that's going out to the banking agent and negotiating the rate on Forex for an incoming transaction or a loan that you'd like to take. Who is that agent, and what are they allowed to do on your behalf?
Secret
Now,
agent man.
indeed. So what works well, and this is my conclusion to all of this, Al, what works well for human security, because to be fair, I can trust you as far as I can verify you, right? Let's think about that. In the employee context, what are we doing when we treat insider risk as a real thing? We verify what our humans can do, and after that, it's a little bit of blind trust. At machine speed, we can't recover from blind trust. So we have to come back to that. We have to work at the speed of verification, and both in the human paradigm and the agentic identity paradigm, we are saying the same thing. It's the same control mechanism. Just the irony is that with agents, it's easier to implement than with humans, who have higher social friction to resisting to, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Look, and the crazy part that we learned this week and this is turning into an AI show, that people should no longer do that on camera, because AI will be able to pick up your biometric signature from your fingerprints. Now, we also said, and you
Literally
posted an
that.
article earlier. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Don't do
but
that.
about the music in the background.
Music, that's like playing a record backwards, right? And you're going to hear bad satanic verses, right? So, and this is the crazy part that we're going to start unpacking when we start talking about AI is attacking you, right? What do you do? So think about it this way, right? In a movie from, I think it was if you ever watched the Robert Redford movie called Sneakers from 1992, my voice is my passport, verify me, right? That's how they got in, and they stole this universal cracking code thing, right? But that's the inherent problem we have today. Outside of having to verify the identity of an agent, right? Because there's going to be more agents talking to our data than humans, number one. Verifying a human is also changing. Simple thing. I've got non-identical twins, but from a biometric signature perspective, on iPhones, your favorite handset of choice, they can unlock each other's phones. And
Amazing.
at the gate of my estate, only one face is registered.
Wow.
So we're talking about AI can do this. Can AI replicate my facial features? Absolutely. They're already doing it digitally with DLSS 5 coming to an NVIDIA GPU of choice, where you start looking at skeletal bone definition when they're rendering, like Cyberpunk 2077. So looking at identities being massively verifiable, because that's the new construct. We need to verify that identity, human or non-human. MFA no longer cuts it. How do we actually go about saying, well, how do we verify? What things are we going to start asking for outside of a selfie from the bank, right? When it comes to verifying that identity? Because you just said, now, what was that verified ID? I think you get it with LinkedIn as well. Right. And they're using identity documents to verify the ID, right? That's the other form of being able to do all of these things. But is that the path we're going down now, to say, before we start talking about things like standing admin access, because we're just talking about normal identities, not even privileged identities inside, or agentic identities, right? Is that going to be what's your thoughts on, we're no longer trusting MFA, we no longer trusting a network location? Are you seeing the world going, well, every time you use MFA and you put in 71, it's going to pop up and you're going to need to stare at the screen and it's going to scan your retina? Is that the sci-fi movie we're moving towards?
I don't think that's enough, Al, because all we've done is we've verified at that point in access that you say who you are claiming to be. And I think a mic drop moment that we can start talking about is risk drops when the privilege expires, as opposed to, well, I've just, in that point in time when I had that privilege, or I have that standing privilege, all I'm doing is authenticating myself. But what am I doing with the rest of the chain that starts with standing admin access, that hasn't spoken to about account exposure, and moves down to who am I, and I'm verifying myself, and then eventually goes down to just-in-time access for everything in my life? Imagine if it's not just JIT, just-in-time access, for my privileged work, but also just-in-time access, which is kind of conditional access to a degree, if we think about it, because I time box when I'm allowed to log into my tenant, and I can do the work that I'm being paid to do during office hours. Identity with all of these put together is the minimum control plane.
All right. Just in time, just enough access, privileged identity management, privileged access, pim pam jit, right? And we are now saying that we want to extend that not just to privilege, but to every identity, human and non-human. So as soon as the privilege escalates, so does the risk. We need to mitigate the risk. And MFA no longer cuts it. Conditional access no longer cuts it.
It's just
this sounds like a problem for observability, right? Over the shoulder, continuous monitoring, continuous evaluation. So no longer should you trust MFA. It's there, but verify. Coming back to, the things that we've always said, trust but verify. Like you should trust but verify that the information that Claude or Perplexity or a AI of your choice gives you back, right? Even though they're getting much better at having the right answers at the right time. I do think that from a identity security posture perspective, the message from today's show talking about identity is the new attack firewall, right? And MFA is just not cutting it. You need to start making sure that there's a bunch of signals that you collect, and you need to observe those signals. It's easy with the human for the most part, but we'll talk about humans owning agentic identities because, the harness on your desktop called Hermes, it's your identity and it's impersonating you when it's attaching itself to other things, right? Because verify, I am Alistair Pugin. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. It's exactly that. Oh, can you just go and get me that API token and then paste it here for me?
Yes.
Just paste it here, right? Yeah. And I will tell you what I'm doing. Sure. Absolutely will ask you for permission.
Yeah. Yes. Wink.
Oh, the funniest thing. Wink. Yeah. Oh, what was the other thing with Perplexity? Perplexity, if I can find Perplexity, I like Perplexity, but it was on my Mac and it wanted access to my entire hard drive. Literally asked for that permission.
Oof, that's a bit risky.
I looked at it today. I looked at it today on my Mac because I was traveling.
That's like giving your kids access to your bank account.
Yeah, weirdly enough, my card is loaded on their phone. I'm the wrong guy. Where was it? I'm sure I was looking at it on my Mac.
That's a safeguard, right? Not a handover.
Yeah. Where's this? Perplexity computer? No, this is a Windows machine. So, we're running up to the top of the end of this. I think the messaging from my side before we go into Nick's top tip of the week is to stop believing that MFA is going to save you in the end, because it's not. Start looking at identities holistically and stop just shooing it away and saying, I've got MFA, I'm okay. That would be my closing statements to today's episode around who are you?
I like that. And with that, we really need some musical segues and the jingle that runs when we do the top tip of the week.
I will bring that next week, yeah. What is your top tip of the week?
My top tip of the week, Jeremy, and thank you so much for calling that out as you get out your Lamborghini Countach. It's a nice nod back to how things used to be when Tom Selleck still had one mustache and one chin. My top tip of the week is consider retiring one shared account. Shared accounts are evil. Why are they evil? Because, when you give access to one of us or one of the folks inside the business and you call it something generic like management with a shared password, who is that person? So pick the ugliest but most manageable one. Remember last week we said 1% change is better than no change. Changing one thing is better than changing nothing. Right? That's kind of the thing about Zero Trust. You start somewhere. You don't boil the ocean. So start with a shared admin, a help desk, some kind of an operational login. And change it to the human or humans that need to do the work. So create the named identity, the Alistair Pugins, the Nicholas Blanks, for the real people doing the work. And then enforce MFA with the strongest method you can support today. Right? That doesn't mean that you go out and run and buy YubiKeys, because maybe you can't support that. But if you can support phishing resistant MFA that works on a device with biometrics attached that knows who you are, that is a wonderful leap forward, especially if that's what you can support now. Then move, if it's privileged, move it to something that's role-based or JIT type of elevation, just in time when you need it. If that's too much for now, if that's what you can do, or if the JIT piece is too much, then consider just doing that one change, which is claim named identities, and make that a strong login. And lastly, as part of this tip of the week, just log what they're doing, right? Because that means that we can now see, what did Alistair do today with that privileged identity? What did Nick do today with that privileged identity? And it allows us to package that up for leadership and show our managers that we have got measurable change by increasing visibility of what happened in our business. And that concludes my top tip of the week.
So before we close out, in the wild today, Nick, in the wild today, I watched a consultant, someone that you know, highly, highly regarded as top tier architect guy, sit on a call with the customer. Lo and behold, pastes github.com/Nicholas Blank /privilege app path auditor.
Wonderful.
I didn't even know it was happening. I'm sitting there, right? And boom, please install this because we need to run this script as part of a zero trust engagement. So
That's amazing.
people are using your stuff, my man. I was like, I know that guy. I know him. I know him.
That. Thank you.
So it was very cool to see that, you know, the stuff that you built is actually being used. And I thought I'd wait to tell you in a live forum that I watched someone that we both regard as a authority in the identity or the endpoint space utilize the tools that you've pushed out for free to the community to help customers achieve better security posture. And I mean, this one is an Entra ID application ownership script, or some parts of it is, and it will list that. And we're not saying go do that. What we are saying is if you've got a shared account or a automation at customerdomain.com that 4 people use, you should start thinking long and hard about replacing that. That's a shared account, right? Oh no, I've got a service account. Same. So start small, replace that, and get on with fixing your identity, because that's the world that we live in today. Nobody's attacking firewalls. And that is it for this week's episode of SCI Fridays. If you made it this far, congratulations. You now officially know more about your environment than whatever signed off we're covered by the firewall. I forgot that this was written. If you got something useful out of this, with the poor soul in your org who keeps inheriting temporary exceptions, because a shared account is no longer a temporary exception, we are happy that you stick around with us on this journey. Remember, attackers don't care about your policies, your slide decks, or your roadmap, or that shared account that you have exempted. Right? They care about one thing that you forgot to lock down. We'll be back next Friday. We now stream on LinkedIn and YouTube. And we will definitely make sure that we tell you about this before the Friday morning that we're going live. That's our promise, our commitment to you. And if you want to find us at Nicholas Blank, at Alistair Pugin, sign up for SCI Fridays on our LinkedIn page. Just go over to linkedin.com/SCI Fridays. Go find us, and I think it's at SCI Fridays on YouTube. We are coming to an audio podcast app of your choice, Spotify. That's the next steps in the right direction now that we've got all this glued up. Any closing thoughts before we stop the go live button, Nick?
Gosh, there is so much, but I think the thought from last week carries over to the thought of this week, Al. Start somewhere. Start small, and it's like with any meaningful change in your life. Anything that you do to secure yourself is better than nothing that you've done. Don't let your default posture be do nothing.
Yeah, no ostrich head in the sand. And on that bombshell, we'll catch you on the next one. I normally do that and say ciao, ciao. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to close my arms and say, we'll catch you next Friday, 1 p.m. South African Standard Time. Peace out. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
And I'm supposed to play the outro music. Where is it? Hold on.